Welcome, guys, to Metallerium Pages again. It is a pleasure to have you with you for In Mourning, for this new album, The Immortal, and more things related to the metal world in general. So we started by asking, how are you doing today, and how it has been during the last couple of years? Because your previous album, The Bleeding Veil, was released in 2021, and now we have this new.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Well, I'd say it's very good.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, things are fine here.
We're sitting in Sweden. We have a German drummer has come to the country.
Just for the interview.
Yeah, but we rehearse a little bit and we're playing a show tomorrow in Sweden. So vibes are good.
Yeah.
Great. So now, and well, let's talk about this new The Immortal. So when do you decide writing songs for this new album? Because sometimes when I hear your band since the beginning to now, so I saw that you have not a busy schedule because you're releasing like 4 years, 3 years, or each 3 years or 4 years you have a new album. So when do you decide to start writing songs for this new or this The Immortal? It was during the previous season for the previous album, or also perhaps all the songs are new, or do you rescue any composition that were out for the previous ones?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, this is actually to be our band. It's pretty early on to have a new record out, and
Yeah,
actually that was a thought about that because I remember we were out doing some shows, and then we're starting to have this vibe that we had one or two cool demos, or riff compilations together, and we started to talk about that it would be cool to go to the studio again because we like being in the studio.
yeah.
But I remember pretty precisely that in 2024, in January, we played 2 shows in Finland in the raging cold, and we were in a car. And our main man Tobias showed us a few leftover riffs, like 2 or something like that. And then the talk started. Yes, we're gonna start to write again. And then actually Tobias started writing in the beginning of 24. By summer, we had kind of all of the tracks except for one, North Star, that came after the summer 24. But in summer 24, we were already busy arranging the songs with vocals and everything. So everything happened between January and July 24, except for one song.
Okay. And now, how do you compare this new album with the previous one? Because at that moment when you released The Bleeding Veil, you released that album during the last years of the pandemic. Now we are outside of the pandemic. The thing's very different. So how do you compare that previous release with this new release?
How would we compare it? I mean, everything. I mean, you don't need to think about stuff that it's difficult to do when it's a pandemic, I guess. So,
Yeah.
now we have everything already planned, with the release, tour, and all that. And that was not.
I remember there was moments like we were on the verge, like, are we actually going to release this now in the pandemic, because we're not gonna play live on it probably, and like that. I think.
But do you mean the comparison in a musical way between?
Well, just talking more for the promotion, for the releases, shows, because at that moment you release the album, but no one shows there.
Yes.
No, those came later. We did a tour around it, but it came later when the pandemic like loosened up a bit, and we were able to go out with Insomnia tour. Still on that album though, but yeah. Otherwise, there was some struggles, with the planning of the recordings and stuff, because we wanted to go to studio and lock ourselves up and record it in one way, but due to pandemic stuff and people couldn't travel, and we had to divide it up in different places and stuff like that. So we're of course trickier in many ways, you know.
So the new one, to sum this up, the new one is absolutely straight because, as I said, it was like a half a year of songwriting. I was practicing intensely, always on the phone with Tobias about the drum lines and everything because, everything has to be in place. And then studio booked November, go in there. We've been in there for 10 days all together, recording the shit. Few things were recorded after that, like guitar solos and vocals, but I think hearing the guys talking about the previous album with the pandemic, which was kind of a mess, this was absolutely straightforward, things happening.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of, I feel the same with the planning for the future right now, with more force behind the organization, because we teamed up with promotion agency and a booker, and we rethought the label thing, how the thing is distributed everywhere. So it couldn't be more different, I guess.
I think a lot of things are in place a lot more the way we'd like them to be this time. Previous one.
Okay. Another detail for me that captured my attention, it is because when I spoke with you for the previous album, The Bleeding Veil, you released it with a small label. It was more like the store, Dallapop. Dallapop, you helped with that one. Now you release this new album with the Supreme Chaos Records, and obviously you're still going with Dallapop for this new album. So now, why you do decide now to change this topic? Because I remember that you said it for the previous album that you released the previous one because you want to more incomes for the new album. But now you are working with Supreme Chaos Records.
Yeah. I think it's like on the previous record, like on The Bleeding Veil, we wanted to move a lot of things closer to ourselves. We've been working with the different labels through the years, which we never met the people in. We've been emailing, and there's been a bit this and that, and we were a bit tired of it. We wanted to be able to go, like, meet up with the people we were going to work with, and there are a lot of good people around us where we live. So we teamed up with Dallapop, which also had us being able to
expand a bit here at home.
Yeah,
Sweden and around.
Yeah, they're a good Scandinavia base like that, but we felt like we needed stronger distribution outside of Scandinavia. And Robbie from Supreme Chaos Records is an old friend of Corny, and since Corny is in the band, it felt very natural with that connection. We got in touch, and Dallapop and Supreme Chaos Records goes very well together. So it's been good vibes with that, and it gives us a stronger distribution, basically. More is more.
Yeah. How could less be more? Yeah, because the big label thing from the 70s or 80s, I mean, these times unfortunately are a little bit over. So you have to come up with new ideas, and I think this teaming up with Dallapop, who do a magnificent job for bands in Scandinavia, but plus the teaming up with a more internationally based label just makes sense. And as the guy said, Robbie is an old friend of mine, so we keep things still close because he's not an anonymous guy behind a desk. You rarely can catch on the phone if something's going on. I call my friend Robbie and ask Robbie what's going on, or Björn does, or whatever. So things are still close, but still widespread.
Okay. And well, this topic, you mentioned one thing about this Bjorn, so that is how for you or for all of you. So how important to have now a label? Because you said it's not like the 80s or 90s when you have Nuclear Blast, Roulette Records, Century Media, Naples Records, like big labels at that moment, who have releasing albums, you have it supported by the label. But now the things are very different. A lot of releases each weekend, but there's mostly the new tendencies, the new bands are releasing independently the music by YouTube, by Facebook, I don't know. So for you now, how important is how is important to have a label behind you when mostly now the tendency is not to have one?
I think still, at least in metal, I think it's still very good to be, working with the label and everything, because as we are all here fans of this genre, and I think we tend to follow the labels, which we like, because labels have, it's a kind of what you say, like
it's a bit like a warranty, like for
exactly.
like it's like how to describe it, like
I mean, if the label believes in this act, maybe new listeners,
will buy a record.
That's exactly. So without that that label stamp, I know that firsthand, because we've been releasing stuff without label stamp.
Yeah.
And I know that we've done many interviews with people asking, like, why are you not on a label?
Yeah.
So we miss your releases because we follow the labels releases, and we can find your release.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's still a thing, but if you are able to get your music out on Facebook or whatever internet shit, maybe that's also good for some bands. Some bands not, some bands it is.
But I think in the end, it's not about a label. What you need as an artist, you need people you can work with. Who does what for you? Who does promotion? Who cares about how vinyls are pressed? And all that shit. And if it turns out that it's not some person who helps you with that, but it's one who has a label, well, then this person has a label, but you need a team of people you trust around you, because simply if we cannot live from that music. If we could live from that music, it would be easy to do it ourselves, because then we would have more time. But everybody is working here, and we have families and stuff, so the money has to come in, and In Mourning doesn't make enough to feed 5 or 4 persons. So then we have to give some work away, because there's simply not so much time left to do everything by yourself. Exactly. And it turns out that Supreme Chaos is a label, and Dollar Pop are kind of a label. So, then it's labels we work with. But in the end, it's about people we need to do stuff for us, people we trust to do stuff for us. So,
Okay. Well, now talking more about the overwhelming releases that we have here. Well, we have in the world per weekend. You can see that we have 30, 40 releases per weekend. Since the pandemic started, a lot of people has much free time to work at home. That's a good thing, because you can work at home. Many people work at home now. Even I work at home. So in this situation, that you can see that the releases in metal, like triple or quadruple for this situation, like we since the pandemic started, we have like 30 or 40 releases per weekend. That's amazing. That's and in this situation you can see that there's a lot of music around in industry, a lot of releases, a lot of bands, etc. So how do you see this topic of the overpopulation of releases per weekend? Because it's not like the 80s or 90s. You have an status. In Mourning is very well known around Europe, around the world, with your music, because your albums are great. But not all bands has this kind of approach, because there's too much now and less time to hear.
How I see it, I mean, I really like the fact that, I mean, I would say the releasing of your music is democratized, so anyone can do it. And I mean, especially, I mean, you can record whatever you want at home with less than nothing, to pay for it. And that's a really good thing. But on the flip side, I think we get flooded with really crappy music as well. Because, we are all, when we sit at home, many of us are happy, amateurs recording stuff, and half the shit is out of tune and everything, and I guess that's on the flip side, the way I see it, I mean, a little bit earlier, maybe you had to pay to go to the studio, and so on has, you got better albums coming out that way. That's my way of thinking, at least.
I mean, on the positive, I guess there's very much like there's very much more opportunities for slimmer genres and stuff to actually even exist. And you know, if you really like this slim genre, you can find that. But on the other hand, it becomes a fucking flooded out there. There's so much music.
Yeah, I try not to think about it too much. I buy the vinyls I want, and I buy less vinyls than I actually want because there's so much good stuff going on. And then I don't. If I see myself as an artist here, how can I set a fucking foot on a stage if there's 2 million bands more? You tend to get crazy in your head. So I'm stopping thinking about that because it makes me crazy. So I really try not to think about that.
Let's move on from that. Huh?
Yeah, forbidden question.
Okay. Now, other topic that is related with the In Mourning since the beginning, since your first album, is because the people try to label the band. All the time, at the beginning, you play something like gothic, other people say doom metal, other people say progressive metal, other people say progressive melodic death metal, I don't know, but there is a lot of stuff coming. Since the beginning to now, the people try to label the band, but the one only thing that is related since the beginning that you have this death metal stuff in your music. And with this kind of topic, since the 90s, the death metal all the time pushed the boundaries into the extreme music. Since the 90s, it was something like that for the thrash metal, or heavy metal, or power metal, because that styles not push the boundaries. Just the death metal, since Autopsy, Morbid Angel, Obituary, Voltrower, the first bands into death metal from the 80s, all the time push the boundaries from the death metal. And when these kind of bands push the boundaries, all the time these kind of bands mix the death metal with a lot of stuff, with folk, with jazz, with blues, with I don't know, with a lot of stuff. So for you, why always the death metal has this kind of approach, not compared to the other styles? Just the death metal has this approach to mix with a lot of styles in the world. Just this the style.
Yeah, maybe simply because you can. It's just a matter of taste. I think Tobias, our main man, and we are the biggest death metal fans in the band. I listen to a ton of extreme bands, and especially the one you mentioned, like the old school stuff, Autopsy, Death, Morbid Angel. This is my DNA. And I always find when I talk about obscure bands from the 90s or 80s, Tobias always knows them. So we have something in common here. Obviously, we listen to exactly the same music in our youth. And so it's Tobias who writes actually the music, and we arrange it together, but Tobias writes everything kind of. It's in his DNA, and he mixes it with everything he likes and thinks that fits to that style. So why do people mix everything with death metal? To cut it short, because you can. It's very greatly mixable.
Well, that is true. That is true, because just the death metal bring these kind of situations. You can see Pestilence, you can see Nocturnus, with Cabers, with a lot of just the death metal. The black metal appears later, but at the beginning, the black metal, it was more like a niche, not something like expensive with the sound with the death metal. But that's a good thing to see because just the death metal has this kind of approach. So now let's talk returning to this new album and the promotion for this new one. So what kind of promotion do you have for this new The Immortal? Perhaps you will release more videos, perhaps you have more. I saw that you will play some tours there in Europe, or perhaps you will play in another continent. Who knows? Asia, America, or obviously America, Latin America, and US, obviously.
Yeah, well, yeah, we have. We have some videos coming up.
Yeah, that's the first thing. We have some more clips.
Yeah, for sure, and that's been something we've been working like thoroughly with now to be able to have some visual like content to the songs and to the social medias and stuff like that. But plus we're doing the European tour in early next year with friends in Omnium Gatherum and Fallujah from the US, so Finland and US, which will be fucking great.
Mm-hmm.
Going through a bunch of Europe. And then we are going to the 70,000 tons of metal.
Is it official? Can we say that?
Yeah,
I didn't dare to say anything.
Okay,
Yeah, because before the weekend before the tour starts, we're gonna play 70,000 tons of metal.
Yeah, it's in the US. So that's that's official.
But everything else you mentioned, every continent, I kind of hope that this will happen with the release of that new album, with good promotion and a good booking agency. Let's hope. For example, I would absolutely love to play Japan, or Southern America. I've never set any foot of mine to feet on Southern America. I'd absolutely love to be there because fans seem to be insane over there. And yes, I want to do everything, and I think in this band most of us want to do everything. So let's see where it ends up. But actually, that's the plan: somehow to find our way there.
So that's the plan, to do everything.
Yes, and fucking everything. Yes, more is more. How could less be more?
Okay. Now, well, talking about one of the last questions for this interview, guys, is that this new Immortal has, for example, an artwork for Metastasis. The previous album, it was released, the cover art, it was by Caroline Strand. But the other three albums was released, for example, the cover art, it was by Christian Wallen. So, like, something at the beginning, you tried to relate the same cover artist, cover designer. But now, since in the last two, you decide to change the cover arts. And now, why did you decide to, well, just to pick the word for Metastasis for this new cover art? So that's a special meaning because this one is very different from the previous cover arts, completely different.
Yeah, and I think that's a bit of it. Like the three ones which we did with Christian Wallin was all albums that were like thematically linked together.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I guess you get an urge to go different places. And with the Bleeding Veil, we made this very abstract artwork, and we're in a very dark place pretty much through the album, and we wanted that to be like expressed in the entire thing. And now, to me, that this album moves on from that to a bit of a lighter place, maybe, or like not so dark. It moves on from that, and with that, we needed a different vibe. So it felt like natural to go another way, and like Metastasis he's just a great artist, which we really like the vibe of. So we felt, can't explain it much more than it felt like it would be a good fit for what we had in mind with this album, and I really think it just was.
Okay, I understand. And one of the last questions for this interview, guys, it is, well, let's talk about from one topic, that is synesthesia it is. Because when you hear something, this synesthesia topic is just for a few people, it's not around the world. But when this kind of people hear the music, they see colors, they see tastes, they smell things when they hear the music. If we relate this topic with this, the Immortal, so what kind of flavors, smells, and colors the listeners will find into this, the Immortal?
Forest, fire, and ice. What do you say? Forest, but in the first place, forest.
It's very forest.
Scandinavian forest. Me, I don't live here in Sweden. I'm from Germany, and I think Scandinavian forests are extremely special. I love everything. If I look out of this window over there, you can't see here. I see super dense forest, and for me, this album definitely tastes like Swedish forest.
Oh, interesting.
It's funny because I feel the same there.
Ah,
yeah, dude, a mouthful of green
moss.
Yeah.
Yeah, but ice as well and fire.
Not so.
Mainly forest, but fire and ice is in there. In the Staghorn, at least.
Debatable.
Yeah, okay. Let's have a fight.
Time to fight. Okay, thank you very much for this, guys. And well, let's focus more on the last word from your work. from your word Cornelius, because you are the new drummer in the world in Armenian since the band since 2024. So do you think there is a new wave, or do you have the implementations or create new methods to create new things with the well, yes, with the In Mourning sound, so new techniques and more things related with this?
I haven't thought so much about that, but I think I've been friends with the guys for 16 years now. I pretty much spent kind of all the summers since 2010 here in this very place, and not this rehearsal group, but this village. And I think there's definitely, without making me better than I am, but there's definitely a new personal vibe here in the band, because we are very close friends, and the guys know I'm in the band because I want to be in the band and not for any other reasons. I want to be in this band. I want to play music with these people. So I think that creates a whole new vibe for the whole band, because I'm not the only one who is affected by that. I have proof of that. And musically, I don't know. Let's see. But I think the Immortal already is a huge step in a new direction, because for sure I met the guys first in 2009, and since then I have followed the music. And if you hang out together, for sure you show, hey, that's our new record. Have you heard it already? Yeah, let's put it on and stuff. And I think we are already on a very new path, because to totally simplify it, I think the songwriting, the writing of the songs, how the songs evolve, how they're composed, are simply better than before. It's not like that all the riffs they've ever written were shit. No, absolutely not. In Mourning always had great ideas, great riffs, but the compositions, how the songs are put together, are just, for my taste as a former fan, they're just better than before. That's it. But let's see what the future brings. I'm open for everything.
Okay. Well, guys, thank you very much for this interview. It was a tremendous pleasure to have you for the second time. This album is a great one. Congratulations on this one. I did my pre-order, so I have arrived soon. Not like last time. I think I arrived in 6 months for the pandemic. But now this one will arrive, I hope, soon. So I hope for this one. So perhaps do you want to add something to your Latin American fans and obviously Metallica followers?
Yeah, thank you very much for tuning in and listening to this interview, and absolutely for rocking our music. I mean, that's the shit.
That's insanely great.
Yeah.
Just big thank you, and thanks for having us again.
Yeah.
And as I said, hopefully you will see us on your stages one day. Hopefully.